2, 1.
7 things you probably didn't know you need to know. I'm Jamie East, and this is the Smart 7.
Good morning, everybody. It's Monday the 7th of March, and it's Cereal Day. And a big happy birthday to Brian Cranston, Wanda Sykes, Rachel Weisz, and Amanda Gorman. It was another weekend of bloodshed in Ukraine as Russian attacks continued, with Ukraine's Deputy Prime Minister reporting strikes on civilian targets, including schools and hospitals. President Zelensky again called for NATO to close Ukrainian airspace and enforce a no-fly zone.
This is your humanitarian obligation to protect us, to protect people. If you don't provide us at least with the planes that we could defend ourselves, then we can come to the only possible conclusion. You want us to be killed slowly.
Zelensky spent the weekend working via Zoom, speaking with members of the US Congress and addressing peace rallies in major European cities, including Paris, Prague and Frankfurt.
For 11 days we've been fighting now, and we already start thinking about rebuilding our country. Now we need wisdom, we need spirit, we need victory, we need peace.
Vladimir Putin spoke on the phone to Turkish President Erdogan, who offered to broker a ceasefire between the two sides. He shows no sign of wavering, even as anti-war protests grow in Russia, insisting the special operation is going according to plan and calling out Western governments for applying sanctions.
These are methods of fighting against Russia. These sanctions that you can see are equivalent of war.
Pressure continues to mount on Russia as more companies limited or withdrew services, including Visa, MasterCard and American Express, TikTok, Netflix and more. The UK's Chief of the Defence Staff, Admiral Sir Tony Radakin, says we're still at the early stages of this conflict.
We're seeing a remarkable fight back from both Ukrainian armed forces and the civilian population. This is going to be a tough fight, this is going to be a long fight, and it's very hard to predict nice, neat outcomes.
Home Secretary Priti Pat has been under huge pressure to address the issue of Ukrainian refugees, with only 50 visas granted so far out of 10,000 applications, with reports of people being turned away at Eurostar Terminal in Paris. EU countries have waived visa requirements, but Priti says her team are working hard.
Let's be clear, this is the first scheme in the world that's up and running in this short period of time. 10,000 applications, and yes, grants are happening as we stand here right now. So I'm surging staff across all application centres across the entire European Union, as well as in the border countries such as Poland.
The US Secretary of State Antony Blinken has continued his tour of NATO countries over the weekend, shoring up support and working on additional sanctions with the G7 countries to be implemented over the next few days. And while there's been no change in the refusal to implement a no-fly zone over Ukraine, he says that the US has given the green light to NATO countries to provide fighter jets to Ukraine following President Zelensky's plea to Congress.
In fact, we're talking with our Polish friends right now about what we might be able to do to backfill their needs if, in fact, they choose to provide these fighter jets to the Ukrainians. What could we do? How can we help to make sure that they get something to backfill the planes that they're handing over to the Ukrainians?
As Russian oligarchs and their money in London comes under the spotlight, questions have been asked about Evening Standard owner Evgeny Lebedev's elevation to the House of Lords. The Sunday Times reports that an initial security service assessment said awarding a peerage to the son of a former KGB officer was a risk. Lord Lebedev says the allegations are incorrect. That assessment was withdrawn, and Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer wants that decision to be looked into.
There's at least the suggestion that the government and the Prime Minister were warned that there was a national security risk. But I think the right thing to do is to refer it to the cross-party committee that can look at the confidential material and come to a view on what actually happened.
Deputy Prime Minister Dominic Raab says the process for clearance for peerage is very clear and rigorous.
Keir doesn't have any evidence. This was done properly and correctly, and we have procedures and systems in place to make sure it is.
Still to come on the Smart 7, Manchester turns blue and tributes to Australian cricket legend Shane Warne. Right after this. Welcome back.
It was a busy sporting weekend with Team GB picking up their first gold at the Paralympics for Neil Simpson and his brother Andrew in the Super G vision-impaired skiing. There was also plenty of Premier League action with Liverpool beating West Ham, Chelsea winning at Burnley and Arsenal grabbing a win at Watford to put them in 4th place. The Manchester derby didn't go well for Man United as they lost 4-1 at the Etihad. To add insult to injury, Man City manager Pep Guardiola was far more concerned about Jurgen Klopp, the challenge of Liverpool in the race for the title.
If at the end we are not able to do it, just because we have an opponent that's the toughest opponent I ever faced in my 12-13 career as a manager. So, and fight with them and being with them means that after big success in domestic trophies and titles is because this is the biggest achievement as a manager I've done in my career.
Charlie XCX had a busy weekend. She was the musical guest on Saturday Night Live. She also popped up on The Tonight Show to share a story about a social media mix-up with Cardi B.
She tweets the song and I'm like, oh my God, Cardi B tweeted my name, this is huge. And then I check the tag and instead of Charlie XCX, it's Charlie STD. If anyone is gonna make this kind of online error, it's got to be Cardi because it's iconic, and I'm almost happy it happened. Yeah. And she can call me Charlie STD whenever she wants.
There you go, Cardi.
There was tragic news on Friday afternoon as one of cricket's all-time greats, Australian bowler Shane Warne, died while on holiday in Koh Samui. He appears to have had a heart attack in his hotel and friends were unable to revive him. He was just 52. He was a larger-than-life character and a tabloid favourite with books and even a musical chronicling his life. He spoke to BBC Breakfast just weeks ago and was very philosophical about the path his life has taken. Rest in peace, Shane.
I've had some pretty tough times that I have to live with for the rest of my life through some poor choices. But, some of them were a long time ago that people like to bring up. Some of them were 30 years ago. As a 20-odd-year-old, 21-year-old compared to a 51, 52-year-old person, you make better decisions when you're older. Look, I wouldn't change too much.
This has been The Smart 7. Wherever you're listening, do us a favour and hit the follow button. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 a.m. Have a great day. Written, produced and published by Daft Doris.